shit, dude, yo. Even crazier. Sometimes it's really awesome when it's muted because I just save myself from just saying stuff that's just stuff. I'm dancing around. Oh, okay. The new word. I like this. This is the new America I'm liking right here. Southern Cone. Whoa, let's go to Argentina. I'ma hit it. Oh. Yeah. Yeah. Working on Mula Shinobi. Wow. Are you serious? Oh, nice. Thought I lost all my... consciousness. But right here, no, I didn't think I lost my consciousness. I just thought that having a digital backtrack is like just good. I'm really curious to now play it again. Yeah. I don't really know where to start or what to talk about, but
what niggas is finna do. I'm looking to finish with twin niggas, boy, these bitches identical. Bullets gon' go through your physical, getting some help, cause condition is critical. Bitch, I don't give a fuck, it's all about my demeanor. I'm a money schemer, head stains like I'm the cleaners. Diamonds out the freezer, water dripping, Aquafina. Bitches watch like I'm a streamer, swerving in a beamer. Clip a roll of steam while I'm wiping up my knees. All my niggas felons, loyal niggas misdemeanors. From Argentina, whipping up that white Christina. Flight to Cartagena, Spanish mommy, she's a prima. Working on Mula Shinobi, show me a shot and I switch, that's Kobe. Knock off his style like Ginobili, fuck on my body, little nigga can't hold me. Ain't in the mix, I be low-key, stay to myself, can't catch no Adobe. Cuban link like a trophy, a bitch on my body, I might let it throw me. Talking and tuck is cozy, please don't run up, you don't know me. 2-3 shots, hit you and your homie. Call a play like I'm Mike D'Antoni, stay to myself, cause niggas be phony. Don't say that you buy it, just show me. I'm out with the gang, no, I ain't by my lonely. Slap with the stick, do a nigga like Tony. Bitch, I don't give a fuck, it's all about my demeanor. I'm a money schemer, head stays like I'm the cleaners. Diamonds out the freezer, water dripping, Aquafina. Bitches watch
Oh, damn. Don't leave your phone open. God damn, yo. Why? I'm fucking... Philosopher Chris Payne. I'm 26. I've had no human contact with anyone. I might need Lex. Get the Lex situation. Absolutely ridiculous. I can't believe that I get... Whoa! Oh, man. All right, yo. Michael, I don't even know you, Mike. I'm not even going to lie, dude. Right now. Yeah, like, I basically got Joe and Lex and any other form of communication was kind of those guys stick with me. Not by the choice. Oh, the story of children in Zimbabwe encountering a UFO. Whoa. Wait. Yeah. America. Certified multi-platinum. Very interesting. No wonder this is a unhidden. Thank you, Clarence. How? I don't even have 3 tabs open. Tabs? How many tabs you got open? 3, dude. Josh Groban is lit. Lex, let him know.
All you need to launch a cult skate brand. Honestly.
A cult?
As long as you have a logo that looks good on literally everything. And a Squarespace online store.
A magical skateboard. Yeah.
So I spoke to Yaron Brook about objectivism and Ayn Rand.
Lex!
He kind of argued, he highlighted the difference between capitalism and anarchism as around the topic of violence, and
Interesting.
that having government
What is anarchism? I know I went
be
over
the
it,
sort
but
of
like, fuck.
the negative way to say it is like having a monopoly on violence, but basically being the arbiter of or
The world.
the people that making sure that violence doesn't get out of hand. That would
Yeah, 2020 showed that. Yeah, the government's great at that. Yep.
well, what's Okay. Without.
This is him with a straight face making that argument. Good work, Ron.
All right. Well, can you illustrate
Here on to nothing.
for the idea that in anarchism, violence would not get out of hand?
Sure. For one thing, if your worst argument against one of my little quotes is, what are presented as the strongest arguments against anarchism are inevitably descriptions of the status quo. So the argument is, under anarchism, you'd have warlords, killing people, and then you'd have, whoever's strongest gets to just take over a neighborhood.
Chris
Well,
fucking Payne!
We saw that
In the
police,
military of America.
are perfectly comfortable disarming the population, and then when they try to protect themselves are punished. We're happy to stand down. You can only have that happen if you have a monopoly. If they're let's suppose you had television stations, right? And CBS said, you know what? We're not going to broadcast. Cool. You don't broadcast. We're going to watch any of these other channels. So the problem with having a monopoly is everyone has to be dependent on this issue. What's amazing about minarchism, which objectivists are, is they will argue that government is really, really bad at everything it does and touches.
Really?
Therefore, it has to be in charge of the most important stuff.
Well, that's not therefore, but there is a thing that's fundamentally different than all the other things.
But Yaron Brook also said that no government has ever, this is on your show, has ever worked in the way he's proposing. Now, objectivism, Ayn Rand's philosophy, is based on objective reality. And what she posited is you look and study the facts of nature, facts of reality, and deduce things accordingly. And she very much regards herself as part of the Aristotelian tradition, as opposed to the Platonist tradition, where the idea precedes reality and the idea is more real than what we see around us. So what he's saying is all the data, according to him, contradicts his argument, but still he's going to make this imaginary government that has never existed, and there's no evidence that it can exist. Let's talk about objective law. To have access to the legal system, which is something we want, even just in terms of settling disputes, when you have a government monopoly, it's going to be more expensive, more difficult for poor people. The cost of hiring a lawyer is more expensive than hiring a surgeon. You can't say with a straight face, this is the only way or the best way.
Okay, so...
And the other thing is the
anarchy is bad.
That they have this against anarchism. They have this stupid claim. It's like, what if, you're a member of one security company and I'm a member of another, and we have a dispute, and one shows at the door. What happens now? As if this is some insuperable argument. Well, we have that on Earth. Every country is in a state of anarchism regarding every other country. We don't have a world government. So what happens if a Canadian kills an American in Mexico? I have no idea. I bet you have an idea.
Dude,
what I'm sure of is that system hasn't worked out ahead of time in
Mexico?
Countries.
Nope, boys.
And it's been worked out in such a way that you and I don't have to reinvent the wheel. Same thing with cell phone companies. If I'm on Sprint, you're on Metro PCS, and I call you, who pays? Does Sprint pay you? Do they split the difference?
I'd pay a lot of time figuring out a new phone.
But the thing is, companies who have auto accidents, they have arbitrage all the time. Like, if I run into you, they work it out, and it never reaches our desk. So the only thing that cops are good at is keeping people, at any government monopoly, is forcing people to be their customers by keeping them unsafe.
Okay, there's a few things I'd like to say there to just explore some of these ideas. So one is in terms of Canadian and Mexico and so on, that it does, something has been worked out perhaps.
Not perhaps, don't say perhaps. You know for sure that
there's a point I'm trying to make. So let's say for sure it's been worked out. There was a point in history where it wasn't worked out. Like to come to a place of stability, there has to first be some instability. So when you first, like for every kind
contradiction,
of situation, they're like dispute over space, like who gets to own Mars, that kind of thing.
Sure.
There's a first for it, and then these different competing institutions will have to figure it out.
Institutions,
and so there's the concern with anarchism, I think, or with any kind of interaction. Or you said that brilliantly that there's an anarchism relative to there's no one world government.
Right.
There's one world internet,
Alex
but
Jones enters the chat, but
oh, is there? No, that's I'm unsourced.
because the fear is that there's going to be an instability that doesn't converge towards some stable place.
That is not the fear, that is the goal under Ayn Rand's philosophy. Markets
Good for Ayn
have
Rand. Yeah,
something
you
that
gotta
they
really
always talk
show
about as
you
being
just
creatively
learn.
destructive, which means you look at something that's been happening for a very long time.
Creatively
Every
destructive.
generation,
Whoa.
every innovator starts chipping away at it. He finds better ways, marginal improvement or or it doesn't work.
It's
and
like
he goes
what
broke.
artists do.
When government tries to implement improvement, we all have to suffer the consequences. When an innovator does, it's a huge asymmetry. If it hurts, it only hurts him. If it succeeds, he becomes rich, and we all profit as a consequence.
But the fear of anarchism, I think, is that it will be non-creative destruction. It'll be just destruction, right? It's not like the instability.
Well, it's like rebuilding in a way. You need
there's
it.
no stability
Reverse
in
engineering is a
words
good
that
one I
sound
saw on a
objective
YouTube
but has
video.
no real meaning. What?
Nah, we gotta take a couple steps back.
Suppose you want stability.
relationships.
Yeah. Let's talk about medicine. Stability means we're not going to invent new diseases or new treatments, right? If you mean stability in terms of a baseline of security, we have that already. Very few relationships turn violent. Under an anarchist system, look at it right now. If you look at a bar full of drunken young males full of testosterone, if you look at a hotel where everyone is not native to the area, those are both far safer than the places that the government has taken upon itself to protect you. The parks, the alleyways,
Wow.
the streets,
Yeah,
the
everything.
subways.
A
We
lot of
have
shit.
right now a comparison of which is better at keeping people safe. And it's very obvious that when something is private and under someone's control, and there would be there'd be more police, but they wouldn't be a government monopoly. The store would have someone, the street would have someone, and you'd have your own personal security that would be attached to your phone. Having security as a function of geography, as opposed to a
Whoa.
function of you as an individual, is a landline technology in a post-cell phone world.
So you think it's possible to have, psychologically speaking, as an individual among the masses, to have a sense of security, even though there's not a centralized thing at the bottom of the whole thing. So like, there's not a set
I
of
got the
laws
Constitution over here.
that are enforced based on geography, like we have nations now. You can have a set of laws that are enforced in some kind of emergent, agreed upon way. So like, basically,
Wow.
I want to go to a hotel and trust that I'll be able to get a room and nobody's going to break down the door and, I don't know,
But you have
take
that.
all my vodka.
Let's take a different way.
Oh no, Lex!
People are worried about a hotel having bed bugs. That's not something the government's involved in. What mechanism, and that's not an unrealistic concern. Are there
Whoa.
mechanisms right now that you can undertake to make sure that's not the case?
Yeah, the
Yes.
weather bug.
So it would
Download
be the
it.
same thing with, I want to make sure I go to a hotel that has security. It would be exactly the same thing. And here's
What?
another example. Kosher food. People who keep kosher, Jews who keep kosher, their food has to be prepared in a certain way.
Is it
There has to be
refrigerated?
higher rabbinical standards, right? If you look at food, it will have that certification. The K, and there's even competition there. There's the K, and there's the stricter U letter. People don't notice it because they're looking for it.
Right.
You would have companies certifying different locales for their level of security, and it would take an hour to have an app that would, just like when you have toll roads, right? That would tell you you're approaching an unsafe area, you're not going to be covered by us, and you could have it color coded very easily. We could do this today.
But the thing is, you're exactly correct, but there's an assumption of you're already in a, okay, you can give me a different word than stability, but you're already in a place where the forces of the market or whatever can operate.
Right.
The worry is like, initially, you might not have enough stability to where you can choose one place over the other versus based on the security that they provide.
We already have
Interesting,
different
Lex,
types
yeah.
of security here because we have federal government, we have state governments, and we have local governments.
Yes.
So, and these often contradict each other.
Mm.
So the idea of the implausibility
When you move
of having
geographically.
different security companies and having it be unstable or impossible, we already have a very rough example of it happening in real life.
But all of it started. Like the idea of, especially with Yaron, is like it all started with government monopoly of violence, saying like, "No, kids, don't let violence get out of hand. So like,
We
how
had
do
a civil war where half the country was slaughtered.
that's a display of the government not having a monopoly on the violence, right? It's like that's a split.
It had such a monopoly on the violence in the north that it could draft people to fight others that they didn't even care.
No, but there's a
about.
south, so it's the government splitting.
Okay.
It's like that's a giant iceberg like splitting.
Whoa.
It's the argument is that you would have something like a civil war much more often under anarchism.
But that's first of all, if you had a
It's
civil war much
2021.
more often, we don't have that with car companies, right?
We
There's
have
no
this-
car company that says I refuse to pay or whatever.
That's not violence. Sorry to interrupt, but like, and I'm playing.
It is.
devil's
Hold on, let me
advocate
finish.
here.
It is violence because if I'm a company and I'm saying that my cars can run over yours with no consequences, this is a rough analog. Why has that not happened? Now,
'Cause Trump
in
held
terms
up.
of having security system, if I am free, just like switching cell phone, to go from one provider to another, and this one company is
Keeps
part of its
people
payment,
safe.
doesn't want $50 a month, $100 a month, wants my son, I'm not going to be a member of this security company unless, in that case, we're dealing with something like a Pearl Harbor or foreign invasion where it's like all hands on deck.
Let's go by evidence. How many places do we have evidence of that there you can have at a large scale?
Why does that have to be on a large scale?
Because it feels like once you don't know the person.
What about eBay? eBay is an example of anarchism in practice. I am selling something to someone whose name I don't even know in a country that is nowhere proximate.
You still use eBay?
eBay acts as the arbiter. Sometimes I don't get the money after I get screwed over, but that's far less than the taxation that I
I
have to
mean,
give
yeah,
to the federal
eBay
government.
lit.
It's a great point, but
You could
since
bid
this
on
is
eBay.
finance, if on eBay you could also commit violence.
Theft is violence.
No.
If you give me 10 grand for a car and I don't deliver anything, you've stolen 10 grand from me.
Yes, but there's
You
something
gave him 10 grand. What?
uniquely problematic to being stabbed or shot.
The reason you're stabbed or shot is because the government, despite its contract, is refusing to allow Second Amendment rights to be implemented among the citizenry. And the people who are making that the case are the cops. They are the ones who are the traitors to the Constitution and should be regarded as such. Whereas private companies are far more amenable to market pressures than the state is.
It's a strong argument, but let's actually just briefly mention the scale thing. Why don't you think we should talk about scale? Like,
Because if you had anarchism just in Vermont or just in Brooklyn, well, fine. The people make the argument you need anarchism or else China's going to invade. But that's like saying what? Like, do these little countries don't exist? Does San Salvador not exist? Some of them are violent, some of them are not. But the point is, they're not all at a moment's notice about to be invaded. Kuwait's an example of this. Kuwait was invaded by Iraq, and very quickly, all the big countries who are interested in having your stability, safe space, got involved and kicked him out of Kuwait. If you had this company that was waging war on the population, it seems quite likely that the other organization would get together and put a stop to this because they're not in a position to provide this service of security to their customers.
okay, all this is brilliant, but didn't you just
It
say
is.
that
Philosopher
we
Chris
are
Payne.
actually in a state of
Lex.
anarchism relative to other countries?
Yes.
Whoa.
So, isn't this what emerges?
me.
This is what aren't we actually living in a state of anarchism where we all have agreed?
I haven't
To
agreed
follow
with
So, like,
Wikipedia.
the basic criticism you have is like you're
Zombies.
born on a land, geographical land,
That's my point break.
geographical area, and you're forced to have signed a bunch of stuff just by being born in a
Correct.
particular place.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. Camp Washington.
So really, if you could just much easier choose
Right,
which space of ideas you associated with,
right.
that would be actually a state of anarchism.
Yes.
Touche.
And you could have like a military. that you-
Philosopher Chris Payne.
And you're certainly not putting people in prison to get raped because they're selling drugs.
Yeah.
I'm just
And
gonna
you're
ignore
certainly not
that.
allowing everyone else on the street who wants to be there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just chilling. It's not like I'm making sacrifices, but I am. Like, this is what I care about. This is what I, just am lucky enough to be in the position for. But we're making history. We're talking about real things. And you guys are bringing up real good points, too. You guys are intellectuals. Like, this is the thing. Like, you guys been doing this for years. Me, it's like... Yeah, you know, these aren't my favorite things to talk about, but favorite things to look and watch and stuff. I'm just a black hole absorbing all information. Create products that people love. Yeah. Shout out Lex.
Sorry guys, I can't come to lunch.
Although AWS kind of does a shitty job of like, I'm continually surprised at
nice.
Mechanical Turk, for example.
Oh,
how
the
shitty
phone.
The interfaces. We're talking about like Rev making me feel good. Like when I first discovered Mechanical Turk,
Rev it up.
the initial idea of it was like it
Whoa.
made me feel like Rev does, but then the interface is like, come on.
Yeah,
It's
horrible.
Why is
Yeah.
it so painful? Does nobody at Amazon want to like
Jeff
seriously
Bezos, he's
invest
killing
in
it.
It felt like you could make so much money if you took this effort seriously, and it feels like they have a committee of like 2 people just sitting back, like a meeting. They meet once a month. Like, what are we gonna do with Mechanical Turk? It's like 2 websites make me feel like this. That and Craigslist.org, whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
You don't know Craigslist, like? Oh.
Well, Craigslist basically hasn't been updated.
Facts.
Do you
Yeah,
seriously
OG
think there's a team- Like,
Craigslist.
how big is the team working on Mechanical Turk?
I don't know. There's some team, right?
Craig's lost.
I feel like there isn't. I'm skeptical.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, if it's not
Yeah.
benefit
Yo,
from,
epic right
you know,
here.
the other teams like moving things forward, right? In a small way.
Possible.
But no, I know you mean we do.
No, not at all. I'm not
Mechanical
even-
Turk for a couple of things as well, and yeah, it's painful UI.
It's painful. But yeah, it works. So they
I
actually.
think most people.
Did you guys not see what I went through?
Right. Like so,
Right.
like we for
Do you know
example,
who I am?
use it through the API, right? So.
But no, I mean,
Even
like,
the
this is
API
what
documentation
helps.
and so on. Like, it's super outdated. Like,
Yeah.
I don't even know what to. I mean, the same criticism. As long as we're ranting.
No, I'm on Lex
My
World
same
right here.
criticism goes to the APIs of most of these companies, like Google, for
That was an
example.
API.
for different services. It's just the documentation. Is
Whoa!
so shitty.
Hindi.
Like it's not so shitty. I should actually be.
You know how I got here, man?
Exhibit some gratitude.
Wow,
Okay,
dude.
let's
Yeah.
practice some gratitude.
Yeah.
The you know the
I'm
documentation
feeling
is
it.
pretty good. Like most of the things that the API makes available is pretty good. It's just that in the sense that it's accurate, sometimes outdated, but like the degree of explanations with examples is only covering, I would say, like 50% of what's possible, and it just feels a little bit like there's a lot of natural questions that people would want to ask that doesn't get covered, and it feels like it's almost there. Like it's such a magical thing.
Yeah.
Like the Maps API, YouTube API. There's a
Yeah,
bunch
I
of
gotta imagine it's like, you know, there's probably some team at Google, right, responsible for writing this documentation. It's probably not the engineers, right? And
No, it's
all
philosopher
of this
Chris
team is
Payne.
not, you know, where you want to be.
Well, it's a weird thing. I sometimes think about this. For somebody who wants to also build a company, I think about this a lot. You know, YouTube, the service, is one of the most magical. Like, I'm so grateful that YouTube exists, and yet
Whoa,
they
Dusty.
seem to be quite clueless on so many things.
And these matter?
Like that, everybody's screaming them at.
Not
Like,
everybody's trying to
it feels
invest.
like
Not everybody's trying to do something with their
whatever
life, bro.
mechanism
They come
that
on
you
YouTube
use
and
to
just
listen to your
sleep.
quote unquote customers, which is like the creators,
Zombies.
is not very good.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's literally people that are like screaming why, like their new YouTube studio, for example. There's like features that were like begged for a really long time, like being able to upload multiple videos at the same time. That was missing for a really long time.
Yeah.
Now,
right,
like
yeah.
there's probably
Simple, too.
things that I don't know, which is maybe for that kind of huge infrastructure, it's actually very difficult to build some of these features. But the fact that wasn't communicated and it felt like you're not being heard. Like, I remember this experience for me, and it's not a pleasant experience.
Yeah.
And it feels like the company doesn't give a damn about you. And that's something to think about. I'm not sure what that is. That might have to do with just like small groups.
That was your
working on
old
these
life,
small
Lex.
features
You're
and
good
these
now.
specific features, and there's no overarching like dictator type of human that says like, why the hell are we neglecting like Steve Jobs type of character? It's like there's people that we need to speak to the people that like want to love our product and they don't. Let's fix
maybe
this
at
shit.
some point you just get so fixated on the numbers, right? And it's like, well, the numbers are pretty great, right?
That's
like
right.
people are watching, doesn't seem to be a problem, right?
Doesn't
And
seem to be a problem.
and you're not like the person that like built this thing, right? So you really care about it.
Yeah.
You're just there. You came in as a product manager, right? You got hired sometime later. Your mandate is like increase this number, like 10%, right? And you just
That's brilliantly put. Like if there's a lesson in this, is don't reduce your company into a metric of like how much, like you said, how much people watching the videos and so on, and like convince yourself that everything's working just because the numbers are going up.
yeah.
There's something you have to have a vision. You have to want people to love your stuff because love is ultimately the beginning of like a successful long-term company. Is they always should love your product.
You have to be like a creator and have
Yeah.
that like creator's love for your own thing,
Yeah.
right? Like, and you paint by these comments, right? And probably like, and Apple I think did this generally like
Yes,
really well.
really well, yeah.
They're well known for kind of keeping teams small even when they were big, right? And he was an engineer. Like there's that book, Creative Selection. I don't know if you read it by
Cookie
Apple
Monster.
engineer named Ken Kosianda. It's kind of a great book actually because unlike most of these business books where it's here's how Steve Jobs ran the company, it's more like here's how life was like for me, an engineer.
And then it's like, here's Steve Jobs.
Pitch Steve Jobs, on like, I think he was in charge of like the
Did
keyboard
he?
and the autocorrection, right? And at Apple, like Steve Jobs reviewed everything, so he was like, "This is what it was like to show my demos to Steve Jobs," and to change them because like Steve Jobs.
Who designed?
Like how, the shape of the little key.
Who's Pro
was off
Max?
Because the rounding of the corner was like not quite right or something like this. Right? Just famously a stickler for this kind of stuff. But
Bionic.
because the teams were small, you really owned the stuff, right? So you really cared.
Whoa.
Yeah, Elon Musk does that similar kind of thing with Tesla, which is really interesting. There's another lesson in leadership in that is to be obsessed with the details and like he talks to like the lowest level engineers.
I'm sure, yo. Elon genuinely, probably out there. Let me see this.
Even if your team isn't in the same place, your work can be. Try Asana today for free.
Well,
Are we gonna address the outfit you're wearing?
We can address it, sure.
For those who are colorblind,
fly guy.
Michael's wearing
Lex!
or just listening to this. Michael's wearing the exact opposite, the inverse from another dimension outfit, which is a white suit and black shirt. It's so genius. Okay, so
You should see the next two looks I planned.
oh no.
Yeah, they're great.
Study me. Just
Well,
fucking
obviously,
study me, yo.
she's
Let's go. Let's go, dude. Let's go, yo. Shit, man.
Okay, there's some deep philosophy to the humor. Is
No, bro.
controlling discussion. Is there like chapters to this genius, or is this just what makes you smile in the morning?
I'm stuck on Joe.
I think you're honestly, in this case, using the word genius a little loosely. I don't
I
think
am.
this is particularly genius.
Yeah.
But I do think it is fun. It is exuberant. It is joyous. I think the bigger my audience has gotten, and the more I actually communicate with fans, I
Digicam.
do feel it kind of kicks in these maternal instincts. Which is very, very odd. I did
Good,
not expect
man.
to have them.
I'm really receptive to you
I'm
guys.
the dad and the mom. I remember, and
Me
maybe it's
too.
similar for you. I'm curious to hear it. For young, smart, ambitious men, 24 to 27, for me was a very rough period, because that's the window where a lot of people get married and they kind of check out. And if you're very much kind of finding your own road, you don't know what's happening. No one's in a position to really guide you or help you, and it's tough. It's a very tough window. And what I'm finding now is having these kids who are in that position, but now instead of them stumbling along, for some of them, I'm the one who could be like, no, it's not you, it's everybody else. And to be able to give
You just
them
sounded
that
like my mom
semblance
now,
of
dude.
feeling seen, to use a cliched expression, to feel normal, and that no, you're the heroes here. They're the background noise. It's just really very flattering and humbling to be in that position.
You have many minds, right? There's the thoughtful kind, Michael. There's like, I'm gonna burn down the powerful,
Yeah,
Michael.
I did like yeah.
And then there's like, I'm going to have this just light-hearted trolling of the world.
Yeah.
And which of those are most important to the 24 to the 27 demographic?
I think it is the combination. It's like if you're making a meal, chicken Kiev, you need the chicken, you need the ham, you need the butter sauce. Because I think people, when you're young, you need to see someone who's fought the fight for you and who's won. So it's very easy to be defeatist.
So this is what winning looks like.
No, this is not.
No.
This is most assuredly what winning is
Music
not.
videos we got.
In my normal clothes.
I mean, yo.
A little bit more.
This is a good time to mention that clothes-wise, you're wearing
Wow,
sheath underwear.
defeatist. No way.
People should buy sheath underwear. Use code Malice20.
If you go to sheathunderwear.com, use promo code Malice20. What I love
Sheathunderwear.com.
to promote the product and wear it, it's the most comfortable underwear I've ever worn, and you have a separate pouch for
Wow.
parts of your genitals.
That's what I thought there was like a punchline coming. No, it's a very nice aspect of the product.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nah. I mean, I'd get it, but you cannot separate Nazism and anti-Semitism.
What's up, guys? Just got my Heal package in the mail right here. If you guys are like me and struggling to find a quick, healthy, and affordable...
So the argument that you can separate Nazism from anti-Semitism is a historical debate people have, and my perspective is, I do not find it convincing that you can separate those two. I think anti-Semitism was essential to Nazism. I think Nazism and Mussolini's fascism have very big differences.
Do you think anti-Semitism was fundamental to who Hitler was?
Yes.
Or was it just a... So this is the interesting thing is like, was it a tool that he saw as being effective?
No, he believed it.
So why do you see those as intricately connected? Could Hitler have accomplished the same amount or more without the Holocaust?
Yeah, because think about how many resources you had to divert at a time where you're having Operation Barbarossa with Stalin.
So why are they connected? Why are they so connected? Is it because Hitler was insane, or was he a bad strategist, or
He
what?
was obviously a bad strategist. He had no need to open a second front. His generals, my understanding, told him this is crazy. It didn't work out for him at all. I mean, to draw Russia and her resources into that war, it makes absolutely no sense in retrospect. There's a book about, I forget what it's called, where it talked about him at that point was just high all the time on amphetamines, and that could have affected his thinking.
Yeah, there's a really good book on drugs.
Yeah.
And, I forget what it's called, but yeah, it's a really good one.
But it was, I mean,
Books and
scapegoating
drugs.
is a big part and parcel of the Nazi
Not at
mythology, and this kind of one universal figure explaining
Can't read.
this kind of skeleton key.
But it could have been the communists. I mean, that could have been the source of the hatred. So,
But
like,
the communists didn't get Germany into World War I like he said the Jews did.
it seems to me that
the atrocity of the Holocaust is the reason we see Hitler as evil.
No, the reason we see Hitler as evil is because of World War II propaganda still. Because we don't see Stalin as evil.
Right, that's
we
my
don't see
main
Mao as
point.
evil to that extent. I think that...
Why? Like, why would you say that?
You know
so
why? Because
the nature of that propaganda.
Because I think a lot of the problem for the certain type of mentality is Hitler didn't mass murder equally. So as long as you're killing just one group, it's a problem. But if you're murdering everyone equally, all of a sudden it's like, what are you going to do? So the fact, like you were saying, the Holodomor is not common knowledge. The fact that Mao's 50 million dead are not common knowledge, and Richard Nixon can be raising a glass to him. In China, these are things that I think the West has not done a good job reconciling.
Michael. Benevolence. Wow. Benevolent. Yeah. Yo, let's get Alex Jones.
Earn your degree faster at Purdue University Global.
Yeah, I'll admit that last video was tough.
There's one for you. Start today with a 3-week risk-free trial.
Wouldn't know how to
Apply
correlate
now
the two.
at
Knock, knock.
Oh,
You're stealing my bed? I'll kill your family.
That's not how knock, knock joke works.
No.
Knock, knock, Michael.
You don't
That was
do
like a
knock-knock
fucking
jokes
century ago, dude.
we have to knock at the door. Shh, turn down the TV.
Wow.
You gotta sit quiet. Never hope they go away. You don't do that back in the motherland. You know this.
It's triggered.
Who's there?
I can't even do it now. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Leon.
Leon who?
Oh.
Leon me when you're not strong, Michael.
No, Leon Musk. No, 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 no.
I stole elegantly
The
eloquently
Inception.
that joke from you.
The lie detector.
Lex, what are you doing? Lex. That was clever. That was cool as fuck,
Yeah, you
dude.
crossed
No
it out on
shit.
paper. That means it's real. The reason I bring it up is because you had the guts, the brilliance to do a knock knock joke, not once but 3 times with Alex Jones.
I think it was like 6. I had a runner.
Okay, maybe they started to sort of
Well.
put together in this beautiful art form that you've created.
Lex brought it
Which
up.
is like these kind, loving knock knock jokes with Alex Jones. So you got the chance to meet him, talk with him twice.
Alex Jones.
Yeah.
In long form.
Met him in the
conversation.
bathroom, dude. He fucking destroyed.
What was it
toilet.
like talking to Alex Jones? Both on the deep
Alex,
philosophical,
right.
intellectual
Yeah,
level.
he's a really smart
and staring the
speaker.
man in his eyes and doing a knock knock joke about Olive. Knock knock, who's there? Olive. I love you,
I
Alex.
love you.
Oh, yeah, Alex.
Well, there's a lot to explain.
Where do you start?
I've been on his show Infowars a few times when I was researching my
No
book.
way.
And
Wow,
you write,
that's awesome.
So I had conversations with him before. One of the things that I appreciate about Alex
Would never
is
think
he is a
he'd
lot
watch
more
Infowars.
self-aware than people think and has a good sense of humor. And I also like a good
Prison
quiz
Planet.
ending. So if you set people up and all these jokes are these kind of vapid, I love you jokes, and the last one's about Building 7, they're not going to see that one coming, nor will he see that one coming. I even had another one about Sandy Hook, which I didn't do on the air because he was being like a good sport, but that was the dagger that was kind of behind my back if necessary. But it was a good mechanism toward... I like it when things work on several levels.
I wonder
It was
if-
also a good mechanism to keep kind of the conversation guarded, and this every so often this is kind of hitting the Control-Delete and bring it down to a certain point of calmness.
What about the love thing? I mean, you're saying that was a build-up to the dagger, but it was also somehow really refreshing to get that little jolt, like that pause. You don't get that in conversations often. Like, I'm a huge fan of Rogan, and you have a 3-hour conversation, but at some point, just pause and be like, I love you, man. Like,
Wow.
It's in the cheesiest way possible, because that seems to be, it somehow hits the hardest then. I don't know, you didn't intend it that way, but with Alex Jones, to sit there and to say, I love you, that was like that. I just haven't never heard that before, and so it struck me as like not just funny for what you're doing, but just like whoa, we just took because conversations are all about like this ranting, especially with Alex Jones.
Yeah.
Just like ranting about this or that, this part of the world. Like, can you believe this shit? That kind of thing. But like to pause and be like, this is awesome. I don't know if you felt that way, but
Oh, I definitely felt that way. So it was actually very fun. I'll give you the backstory of how that happened. It was silly because Tim calls me up and there's this expression in marketing: don't go past the sale, right? So if you're trying to sell someone a car and you're like, it's got this feature, and that feature, and they're like, you know what, I'm gonna buy the car. If you keep talking, you can only make them lose the sale. You just get them to sign it and get out of Dodge. So Tim calls me up. And he goes, okay, here's what we're thinking. This is top secret. Alex is going to be on the show. We want you on as well. And I've never said yes to anything as quickly in my life. And then he keeps talking, and I'm like, Tim, you don't have to sell it. I interrupted him. I go, you don't have to sell it.
why you, by the way?
I think because I am kind of an agent of chaos, and Alex is, in his own way, an agent of chaos. And what provides an opportunity.
Alex
in this
Jones
kind of
is so
media space
chaotic.
that you and I travel in. It's the kind of things where none of us three, as we said on the show, knew what it would be like. If you know within certain parameters what Megyn Kelly or Wolf Blitzer or any of these corporate figures are going to be like in a conversation to some extent. None of us had any idea. I knew they didn't know I was bringing knock jokes.
Battling trannies
So
worldwide.
That was
Alex
kind of
Jones.
what was so I said at one point I'm kind of envious of the audience
Yeah.
because there's so many exciting things that are happening and that the internet and podcasting provides people an opportunity to do that it was great.
Yeah, that was the greatest pairing with Alex Jones that I've ever seen by far. So like,
Wow, okay, thank you.
So I immediately knew. Now this isn't a knock on Tim, but I don't even know if Tim was prepared
Tim was not prepared.
for this
How
couple.
could he be prepared?
Well, so I don't know if Tim is used to that. I think Joe Rogan is more equipped, prepared for the chaos, just the years he's been in it. Like I immediately thought this is the right pairing for Joe Rogan because Alex Jones has been on Joe Rogan a few times,
Yeah.
3 times. My favorite so far was with Tim Dillon.
Right, for Jen, yeah. No, that
But
was-
Tim was clearly, Tim Dillon was also kind of a genius in his own right, but he was kind of a fan and he was back and he was stepping away. He was almost like in awe of Alex Jones, where you were in awe of the experience that's being created, and at the same time fearlessly just trolling the situation. I mean, to do a knock joke, to stop me, that just shows that you're in control of the experience. No, you're like riding the experience. That immediately was like, this needs to be on Rogan. So I hope that happens as well. Just you on your own, of course, on Rogan, but just you. That's an experience. That's the whatever. There's got to be a good name for it, like Jimi Hendrix experience. There's the Michael and Alex.
because I was a band.
Whoa.
It's taken.
Jimi Hendrix.
Well, I don't know how many years you can restart the experience.
Because I feel, sorry to interrupt you, I feel a very big responsibility, especially in 2020, to provide fun and something cool and something unique that hasn't been done before for the audience. I think this has been a very rough year on our
Gibson.
audiences psychologically and in other aspects of their lives. So I feel if I'm going to be
Flying
there,
V8
I'm going
Ebony.
to put on a show. And it's also going to be great because it also alienates the people you don't want, right? So there's a lot of people who sit there and be like, oh, he's telling people who are too cool for school, where they're like, oh, he's telling knock jokes, this is stupid. I'm like, good. If you have an issue with having eaten cotton candy or doing a puzzle with a kid or without it, by yourself, that's on you. And it's something something I think is the enemy of cynicism and this idea that like, oh, this is too silly and beneath me. It's like we need that kind of childlike aspect in our lives. I think it's something we could use more of. It's very much an aspect of our media culture that to kind of be condemnatory about that or to do it in a certain very corporate fake way. So this is something I
Bro way,
encourage a
do it
lot,
the
something I
squad
enjoy
way, Halo
doing.
3.
And again, I like with the first time I was on Tim, I had a propeller beanie on, with the motorized, and a lot of people were like, "I can't take anyone seriously who dresses like this." I go, "Good. If you judge someone's ideas by how they appear instead of the ideas themselves, you're not someone I want on my team."
All right. But if I had a camo suit, can't blame me for looking a little good. Even though the white one's nice, All right. Let's get another one, Lex. I'm gonna get it right here, yo. Will human civilization destroy itself? All right. I like this concept right here, though. Cynicism being skeptical.
Can I ask a dark question?
As opposed to the other things we've been talking about?
There's always a thread, a hopeful message. I think there'll be a hopeful message on this one, too.
You may have the wrong guess. I'm just saying.
Dark humor, the Dark Knight.
If you were to bet money
Lex,
on the way that human civilization destroys itself, or it collapses in some way that is where the result would be unrecognizable to us as anything akin to progress, what would you say? Is it nuclear weapons? Is it some societal breakdown through just more traditional kinds of war? Is it engineered pandemics, nanotechnology? Is it artificial intelligence? Is it something we can't even expect yet? Do you have a sense of how we humans will destroy ourselves? Or might we live forever?
Elon Musk and AI.
What governs my view of this thing is the ability for us to focus ourselves collectively, right? And that gives me the choice of looking at this and saying, what are the odds we will do X versus Y, right? So go look at the 62 Cuban Missile Crisis.
No shit.
Where we looked at the potential of nuclear war and we stared right in the face of that.
Cuban Missile Crisis.
To me, I consider that to be, you want to talk about a hopeful moment, that's one of the rare times in our history where I think the odds were overwhelmingly that there would be a nuclear war. And I'm not the super Kennedy worshiper that, I grew up in an era where he was, especially amongst people in the Democratic Party, he was almost worshipped, and I was never that guy. But I will say something. John F. Kennedy, by himself, probably made decisions that saved 100 million or more lives, because everyone around him thought he should be taking the road that would have led to those deaths. And to push back against that is, when you look at it now, I mean, again, if you were a betting person, you would have bet against that. And that's rare, right? So when we talk about how the world will end, the fact that one person actually had that in their hands meant that it wasn't a collective decision. It gave, remember I said I trust people on an individual level, but when we get together, we're more like a herd, and we devolve down to the lowest common denominator. That was something where the higher ethical ideas of a single human being could come into play and make the decisions that influence the events.
Wow.
But when we have to act collectively,
I heard that
I get
before.
a lot more pessimistic. So take what we're doing to the planet. And we talk about it always now in terms of climate change, which I think is far too narrow.
The climate is changing.
And I always get very frustrated when we talk about these arguments. Is it happening? Is it human? Just look at the trash.
Drink bleach, dude.
Forget climate for a second. We're destroying the planet because we're not taking care of it. And because what it would do to take
Just
care
make
of
a
it
new
would
meme.
require collective sacrifices that would require enough of us to say okay, and we can't get enough of us to say okay.
It's one world.
Because too many people have to be on board. It's not John F. Kennedy making one decision from one man. We have to
It's
have
flaws for Chris Payne.
85% of us or something around the world. Not just, you can't say we're going to
Let's
stop
do
doing damage to the world here in the United States if China does it, right? So the amount of people that have to get on board that train is hard. You get pessimistic hoping for those kinds of shifts unless
common sense.
It's right, Krypton's about to explode. We have,
Whoa.
and so
Whoa,
I think if
cool.
you're talking
This is
about
actually a cool
gambling
cover.
man's view of this,
I've never seen this.
that's got to be the odds-on favorite because it requires such a unanimous.
No, it's like-
and the systems maybe aren't even in place,
This
right?
is,
The fact that we would need intergovernmental bodies that are completely discredited now on board, and you would have to subvert the national interests of nation states. I mean, the amount of things that have to go right
I'm here for Lex.
in a short period of time. We don't have 600 years to figure this out, right?
Facts.
So to me, that looks like the most likely, just because the things we would have to do to avoid it seem the most unlikely. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
I believe,
Wow.
call me naive, in just like you said with the individual, I believe that charismatic leaders, individual leaders, will save us. Like this.
What if you don't get them all at the same time? What if you get a charismatic leader in one country, or what if you get a charismatic leader in a country that doesn't really matter that much?
Well, it's a ripple effect. So it starts with
A
one
country
leader.
that doesn't
Their
matter?
charisma inspires other leaders.
Not my country.
It's like one ant queen steps up, and then the rest of the ants starts behaving, and then there's like little other spikes of leaders that emerge, and then that's where collaboration emerges. I tend to believe that like when you heat up the system and shit starts getting really chaotic, then the leader, whatever this collective intelligence that we've developed,
Wow.
the leader will emerge. Like
That's
Do you
amazing.
think there's just as much of a chance, though, that the leader would emerge and say, the Jews are the people who did all this?
That's right.
We're gonna, you know what I'm saying? Is that the
What is a
idea
leader,
that they would
dude?
come up, you have a charismatic leader and he's going to come up with the right solution. He's
leader?
going to come up with the right solution as opposed to totally coming up with the wrong solution.
No, I'm leader
You
today.
could be right. But a lot of things have to go the right
Did
way.
you look at the
But
boy?
my intuition about the evolutionary process that led to the
Hey, it's
creation
almost
of
King's
human
Day.
intelligence and consciousness on Earth results in the power of, like, if we think of it, just the love in the system versus the hate in the system. That the love is greater. The human kindness potential in the system is greater than the human
Yeah.
hatred potential. And so the leader that is in the time when it's needed, the leader that inspires love and kindness is more likely to emerge and will have more power. So you have the Hitlers of the world that emerge, but they're actually, in the grand scheme of history, are not that impactful. So it's weird to say, but not that many people died in World War II. If you look at the full range of human history, it's you go up to 100 million, whatever that is. With natural pandemics too, you can have those kinds of numbers, but it's still a percentage. I forget what the percentage is, maybe 3-5% of the human population on Earth. Maybe it's a little bit focused on a different region, but it's not destructive to the entirety of human civilization. So I believe that the charismatic leaders, when time is needed, that do good for the world in the broader sense of good, are more likely to emerge than the ones that say kill all the Jews. It's
possible, though, and this is just, I've thought about this all of 30 seconds, but I mean,
we're betting money here on the 21st century. Who's going to win?
I think maybe
Multitaskers.
you've divided this into too much of a black and white dichotomy. This love and good on one side and this evil on another. Let me throw something that might be
Yeah,
more
it's
in the
interesting,
center
actually,
of
in
that
America.
linear balancing act.
Because you go to China, you
Self-interest,
can't love or hate the.
which may or may not
Not even China, but it's just
good,
kind
the
of.
good version of it we call enlightened self-interest, right? The bad version of it we call selfishness. But self-interest to me seems like something more likely to impact the outcome than either love on one side or evil on the other. Simply a question of what's good for me, or what's good for my country, or what's good for my point of view, or what's good for my business. I mean, if you tell me, and maybe I'm a coal miner, or maybe I own a coal mine. If you say to me, we have to stop using coal because it's hurting the earth, I have a hard time disentangling that greater good question from my right now good feeding my family question, right? So I think maybe it's going to be a much more banal thing than good and evil, much more a question of we're not all going to decide at the same time that the interests that we have are aligned. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. But I mean, I've looked at
I don't think we've
Ayn
ever
Rand
done
and
that
objectivism and kind of really
in
thought like,
America.
how bad or good can things go when everybody's acting selfishly? But I think we're just talking two ants here with microphones talking about. But like the question is when they spreads. So what do I mean by love and kindness? I think it's human flourishing on Earth and throughout the cosmos. It feels like whatever the engine that drives human beings is more likely to result in human flourishing. And people like Hitler are not good for human flourishing. So that's what I mean by good, maybe it's an intuition that kindness is an evolutionary advantage. I hate those terms. I hate to reduce stuff to evolutionary biology always, but it just seems like for us to multiply throughout the universe, it's good to be kind to each other. And those leaders will always emerge to save us from the Hitlers of the world that want to kind of burn the thing down with a flamethrower. That's the intuition.
But let's talk about, you brought up evolution several times. So let me play with that for a minute.
Wow.
I think going back to animal times, we are conditioned to deal with overwhelming threats right in front of us. So I have quite a bit of faith in humanity when it comes to impending doom right outside our door. If Krypton's about to explode, I think humanity can rouse themselves to great and would give power to the people who needed it and be willing to make the sacrifices. But that's what makes, I think, the pollution / climate change / screwing up your environment threat so particularly insidious, is it happens slowly, right? It defies fight and flight mechanisms. It defies the natural ability we have to deal with the threat that's right on top of us. And it requires an amount of foresight that while some people would be fine with that, most people are too worried, and understandably, I think, too worried about today's threat rather than next generation's threat or whatever it might be. So, I mean, when we talk about, when you said, what do you think the greatest threat is? I think with nuclear weapons, could we have a nuclear war? We darn right could. But I think that there's enough of inertia we're against that because people understand instinctively if I decide to launch this attack against China and I'm India, we're going to have 50 million dead people tomorrow. Whereas if you say we're going to have a whole planet of dead people in 3 generations if we don't start now, I think the evolutionary
Tell your wife.
Way that
Not today.
Have evolved mitigates maybe against that. In other words, I think I would be pleasantly surprised if we could pull that off. Does that make sense?
Totally.
I don't mean
One
to be
can
like,
be hopeful.
I'm the predicting doom.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're speaking really well,
It's fun
man.
that way. I think we're both, maybe I'm over the top on the love thing.
Maybe I'm over the top on the doom.
So it makes for a fun chat.
Where do you find the center? Okay, wow. Lex, dude. Why string theory is wrong? What are you? Alright, yeah, let's talk about this.
A migraine hope from Aimovig to show up.
I wish I knew a little bit more about this
The
guy.
hectic, the tender,
Sick website though, literally.
tense,
But
and the fiery. But for many,
Yeah, you know.
migraine keeps them from saying, "I am here."
this is
Aim
like
to
really
change
cool
that.
website. This is like
Aimovig, a
modern
preventive treatment for migraine.
American.
You've recorded an episode of Steering Into the Iceberg on your Common Sense program.
Yeah.
That has started a lot of conversations.
Whoa! I remember I've
It's
seen an
quite
iceberg
moving,
before.
it's quite
Holy
haunting.
shit!
Made a lot of angry emails.
Really?
Of course.
I don't think I've seen like a whole
I did something I
iceberg.
haven't
But
done in 30 years. I endorsed
what is an
a political
iceberg?
candidate from one of the two main parties, and there were a lot of disillusioned people.
Wow.
I guess I didn't hear it as an endorsement. I just heard it as the similar flavor of conversation as you have in hardcore history. It's almost the speaking about modern times in the same voice as you speak about when you talk about history. So it was just a little bit of a haunting view of the world today. I know we were just wearing our Doomcaster.
I mean, put that right back on, are you?
No, I like the term Doomcaster. Is there how do we get love to win? What's the way out of this? Is there some hopeful line that we can walk to avoid something, and I hate to use the terminology, but something that looks like a civil war? Not necessarily a war of force, but a division to a level where it doesn't any longer feel like a united States of America, with an emphasis on united.
Look at the flag.
Is there a way out?
A new flag?
I read a book
No.
a while back.
Not
I
a
want
new
to say
flag,
George
but
Friedman, the Stratfor guy, wrote it. It was something called The Next 100 Years, I think it was
the
called.
MAGA hat didn't work.
And I remember thinking...
but it worked, but it didn't,
I didn't
for
agree with
everybody.
any of it. And one of the things I think he said in the book was that, the United States was going to break up. I'm going from memory here. He might not have said that at all, but something was stuck in my memory about that. And I remember thinking...
This is beautiful.
But I think some of the arguments were connected to the differences that we had and the fact that those differences are being exploited. So we talked about media earlier and the lack of truth and everything. We have a media climate that is incentivized to take the wedges in our society and make them wider, and there's no countervailing force to do the opposite or to help.
I haven't found
there was
one
a
yet.
famous
It's unorganized.
memo from a group called Project for a New American Century, and they took it down, but the Wayback Machine online still has it, and it happened before 9/11, spawned all kind of conspiracy theories, because it was saying something to the effect of, and I'm really paraphrasing here, but that the United States needs another Pearl Harbor type event, because those galvanize a country that without those kinds of events periodically is naturally geared towards pulling itself apart. And it's those periodic events that act as the countervailing force that otherwise is not there.
Pandemic,
if that's
yo.
true,
Let me cure it.
then we are naturally inclined towards pulling ourselves apart. So to have a media environment that makes money off widening those divisions, which we do. I mean, I was in talk radio, and it has those people, the people that used to scream at me because I wouldn't do it. But I mean, we would have these terrible conversations after every broadcast where I'd be in there with the program director and they're yelling at me about heat. Heat was the word. They create more heat. Well, what is heat, right?
Whoa,
Heat is
good
division,
question.
right? And they want the heat not because they're political. They're not Republicans or Democrats either. We want listeners and we want engagement and
I'm a
involvement.
heat body.
Because of the constructs of the format, you don't have a lot of time to get it. So you can't have me giving you, like on a podcast, an hour and a half or 2 hours where we build a logical argument and you're with me the whole way. Your audience is changing every 15 minutes. So whatever points you make to create interest and intrigue and engagement have to be knee-jerk, right now. They told me once that the audience has to know where you stand on every single issue within 5 minutes of turning on your show. In other words, you have to be part of a linear set of political beliefs so that if you feel A about subject A, then you must feel D about subject D, and I don't even need to hear your opinion on it, because if you feel that way about A, you're going to feel that way about D. This is a system that is designed to pull us apart for profit, but not because they want to pull us apart, right? It's a byproduct of the profit. That's one little example of 50 examples in our society that work in that same fashion. So what that Project for a New American Century document was saying is that we're naturally inclined towards disunity, and without things to occasionally ratchet the unity back up again so that we can start from the baseline again and then pull ourselves apart till the next Pearl Harbor, that you'll pull yourself apart, which I think that's what the George Friedman book was saying that I disagreed with so much at the time. So in answer to your question about civil wars, we can't have the same kind of civil war because we don't have a geographical division that's as clear-cut as the one we had before, right? You had a basically north-south line in some border states. It was set up for that kind of split.
Yo, in the
now,
history, yeah,
we're
wow.
divided within communities, within families, within gerrymandered voting districts and precincts, right? So you can't disengage. We're stuck with each other. So there's a civil war now, for lack of a better word. What it might seem like is
digital.
the late 1960s, early 1970s, where you had the bombings and, let's call it domestic terrorism and things like
right.
that, because that would seem to be something that, once again, you don't even need a large chunk of the country pulling apart.
I'm a black hole.
10% of people
Philosopher
who
Chris
think
Payne.
It's the end times can do the damage. Just like we talked about terrorism before, and a can of gas and a big lighter. I've lived in a bunch of places, and I won't give anybody ideas, where a can of gas and a big lighter would take 1,000 houses down before you could blink.
Yeah.
Right? That terrorist doesn't have to be from the Middle East, doesn't have to have some sort of a fundamentalist religious agenda. It could just be somebody really pissed off about the election results. So once again, if we're playing an odds game here, everybody has to behave for this to work right. Only a few people have to misbehave for this thing to go sideways. And remember, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. So you don't even have to have those people doing all these things. All they have to do is start tit for tat.
I already did it.
And there's an escalation.
Yes, and it creates a momentum of its own,
Momentum.
which leads fundamentally, if you follow the chain of events
What is
down there,
momentum?
to some
No, I don't
form of
think-
dictatorial government as the only way to create stability. Right? You want to destroy the republic and have a dictator? That's how you do. And there are parallels to Nazi Germany, the burning of the Reichstag, blah blah blah.
And
I'm the Doomcaster again, aren't I?
well, and some of it could be manufactured by those seeking authoritarian power.
Absolutely, like the Reichstag fire was, or the Polish soldiers that fired over the border before the invasion in 1939.
To fight the devil's advocate with an angel's advocate, I would say, just as our conversation about Elon, it feels like individuals have power to unite us, to be that force of unity.
Wiktionary.
So, you mentioned the media. I think you're one of the great podcasters in history. Joe Rogan is like a long form, whatever. It's not podcasting. It's actually whatever the
Very infrequent is what it is.
I love it, man.
But the basic process of it is you go deep, stay deep, and the listener stays.
I got my
with you for a long
angel's
time.
advocate
So
right here.
I'm just looking at the numbers. Like we're almost 3 hours in, and from previous episodes, I can tell you that about 300,000 people are still listening to the sound of our voice 3 hours in.
Wow.
So usually it's 300 to 500,000 people listen, and they tune out.
Congratulations, by the way.
Good for you, man.
Joe Rogan
Good
is
for you, Lex.
what,
That's
10
awesome.
times
That's
that.
fucking dope,
And
dude.
so he has
Get them subs up.
power to unite. You have power to unite. There's a few people with voices that it feels like they have power to unite.
Angels.
Even if you quote
Kelly.
unquote endorse a candidate and so on, there's still, it feels to me that
No way
Speaking of-
obsessed.
I don't want to keep saying love, but it's love and maybe unity more practically speaking, that like sanity, that like respect for those you don't agree with or don't understand. So empathy, well, just a few voices of those can help us avoid really importantly, not avoid the singular events, like you said, of somebody starting a fire and so on.
Keeping it real.
But avoid the escalation of it, the preparedness of the populace to escalate those events, to turn a singular event and a single riot or a shooting or like even something much more dramatic than that, to turn that into something that creates like ripples that grow as opposed to ripples that fade away.
Right.
And so, like, I would like to put responsibility on somebody like you and, well, me in some small way, and Joe being cognizant of the fact that a lot of very destructive things might happen in November. And a few voices can save us, is the feeling I have. Not by saying you should vote for
cognizant
or any of that kind
is
of stuff,
something you should
but really
be
by
aware
being
of.
The voice of calm that, like, calms the seas from, or whatever the analogy is, from boiling up. Because I
yeah,
truly
that was
worried
fucking.
about,
I got something
this
that
is the first time this year when I somehow have felt that the American project will go on forever. When I came to this country, I just believed, and I still think I'm young, but, like, you know, I have a dream of creating a company that will do a lot of good for the world.
Get it.
And
Get it, Lex.
I thought that America is the beacon of hope for the world in the ideas of freedom, but also the idea of empowering companies that can do some good for the world. And I'm just worried about this America that filled me, a kid, our family came from nothing, and from, you know, Russia as it was. So
now suited up.
To be able to do anything in this new country. I'm just worried about it.
Get suited or booted.
People can still keep this project going. Like,
yeah, that'd be amazing.
People like Elon, people like Joe.
Not
is there,
Dan Carlin ever, but by his book.
Do you have a bit of that hope?
I'm watching this experiment with social media right now. And I don't even mean social media, really expand that out to, I feel like we're all guinea pigs right now watching, you know, I have 2 kids, and just watching, and there's a 3 years space between the 2 of them. One's 18, the other's 15. And just, you know, when I was a kid, a person who was 18 and 15 would not be that different. Just 3 years difference, more maturity. But their life experiences, you would easily classify those 2 people as being in the same generation. Now, because of the speed of technological change, there is a vast difference between my 18-year-old and my 15-year-old. And not in the maturity question, just in what apps they use, how they relate to each other, how they deal with their peers, their social skills, all those kinds of things where you turn around and go, this is uncharted territory. We've never been here, so it's going to be interesting to see what effect that has on society. Now, as that relates to your question, the most upsetting part about all that is reading how people treat each other online. And, you know, there's lots of theories about this. The fact that some of it is just for trolling laughs, that some of it is just people are not interacting face-to-face, so they feel free to treat each other that way. And I, of course, am trying to figure out how if this is how we have always been as people, right? We've always been this way, but we've never had the means to post our feelings publicly about it, or if the environment and the social media and everything else has provided a change and changed us into something else. Either way, when one reads how we treat one another and the horrible things we say about one another online, which seems like it shouldn't be that big a deal, they're just words, but they have a cumulative effect. I mean, when I was reading Meghan Markle, who I don't know a lot about because it's too much of the pop side of culture for me to pay, but I read a story the other day where she was talking about the abuse she took online and how incredibly overwhelming it was and how many people were doing it. And you think to yourself, okay, this is something that people who are in positions of what you were discussing earlier never had to deal with. Let me ask you something, and boy, this is the ultimate Doomcaster thing of all time to say. When you think of historical figures that push things like love and peace and creating bridges between enemies, when you think of what happened to those people, first of all, they're very dangerous. Every society in the world has a better time, easier time dealing with violence and things like that than they do non-violence. Non-violence is really difficult for governments to deal with, for example.
Yeah, there's too many
what
hippies.
To Gandhi and Jesus and Martin Luther King, and you think about all those people, right?
They were taken out of schools.
It's ironic, isn't it, that these people who push for peaceful solutions are so often killed, but it's because they're effective. And when they're killed, the effectiveness is diminished. Why are they killed? Because they're effective. And the only way to stop them is to eliminate them. Because they're charismatic leaders who don't come around every day. And if you eliminate them from the scene, the odds are you're not going to get another one for a while. I guess what I'm saying is the very things you're talking about, which would have the effect you think it would, right? They would destabilize systems in a way that most of us would consider positive. But those systems have a way of protecting themselves, right? And so I feel like history shows, see, history is pretty pessimistic, I think, by and large. If only because we can find so many examples that just sound pessimistic. But I feel like people who are dangerous to the way things are tend to be removed.
Yes. But there's two things to say. I feel like you're right that history, I feel like the ripples that love leaves in history are less obvious to detect, but are actually more transformational. Like,
well, one could make a case about, I mean, if you want to talk about the long-term value of a Jesus, a Gandhi, yes, those people's ripples are still affecting people today. I agree with
and that's, you feel those ripples through the general improvement of the quality of life that we see throughout the generations. Like, you feel the ripples through
I'll go along with you on that. Okay.
But I would, even if that's not true, I tend to believe that, and by the way, the company that I'm working on is a competitor, is exactly attacking this, which is a competitor to Twitter. I think I can build a better Twitter as a first step. There's a long story in there.
I think a 3-year-old child could build it better. And this is not to denigrate you. I'm sure yours would be better than a 3-year-old. But Twitter is so... And listen, Facebook too, they're really awful platforms for intellectual discussion and meaningful discussion. And I'm on it. So
they're washed up.
We're new to this. So it wasn't obvious at the time how to do this. Now a 3-year-old can do it. I tend to believe that we live in a time where the tools that people that are interested in providing love, like the weapons of love, are much more powerful. So like, the one nice thing about technology is it allows anyone to build a company that's more powerful than any government. So that could be very destructive, but it could be also very positive. And I tend to believe that somebody like Elon that wants to do good for the world, somebody like me and many like me, could have more power than any one government. And by power, I mean the power to affect change, which is different from
Gandhi. What do you do with government? And I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'll forget my train of thought. I'm getting old. But I mean, how do you deal with the fact that already governments who are afraid of this are walling off their own internet systems as a way to create firewalls simply to prevent you from doing what you're talking about? In other words, if there's an old line that if voting really changed anything, they'd never allow it. Mm-hmm. If love, through a modern day successor to Twitter, would really do what you want it to do, and this would destabilize governments, do you think that governments would take countermeasures to squash that love before it got too dangerous?
There's several answers. I think one, first of all, I don't actually, to push back on something you said earlier, I don't think love is as much of an enemy of the state as one would think.
Different states have different
Keeps them honest.
I think the
they would hate it. They need reparations.
And I don't always think that love is in tension with power. Like, I think
lost.
And I think it's not just about love, it's about rationality, it's reason, it's empathy, all of those things. I don't necessarily think they're always have to be, by definition, in conflict with each other. So that's one sense, is I feel like basically you can Trojan horse love into behind but you have to be good at it. This is
spyware.
The thing. Is you have to be conscious of the way these states think. So the fact that China banned certain services and so on, that means the companies weren't eloquent, whoever the companies are, weren't actually good at infiltrating. Like, I think, isn't that a song, like, Love is a Battlefield? I think
Love is a battlefield.
Yeah, it's all a game, and you have to be good at the game. And just like Elon, who said,
I'm a lover, not a fighter.
The environment I mean, that's not just by getting on a stage and saying it's important to save the environment. It's by building a product that people can't help but love. And then convincing Hollywood stars to love it. Like, there's a game to be played.
Okay, so let me build on that, because I think there's a way to see this. I think you're right. And so it has to do with a story about the 1960s. In the vast scheme of things, the 1960s looks like a revival of neo-romantic ideas, right?
Yeah, wow.
I had a buddy of mine several years, 2 decades older than I was, who was in the 60s, went to the protest, did all those kind of things. And we were talking about it, and I was romanticizing it. And he said, don't romanticize it. He goes, let me tell you, most of the people that went to those protests and did all those things, all they were there was to meet girls and have a good time. And, it wasn't so, but it became in vogue to have all, in other words, let's talk about your empathy and love.
In Vogue magazine.
You're never going to, in my opinion, grab that great mass of people that are only in it for their interest in whatever. But if
no way.
meeting girls for a young teenage guy requires you to feign empathy, requires you to read deeper subjects because that's what people are into, you can almost, as a silly way to be trendy, you could make maybe empathy trendy, love trendy, solutions that are the opposite of that, the kind of things that people inherently will not put up with. In other words, the possibility exists to change the zeitgeist and reorient it in a way that even if most of the people aren't serious about it, the results are the same. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've found a meeting of the minds.
Yeah, exactly. creating incentives that encourage the best and the most beautiful aspects of human nature.
Against our will.
It all boils down to meeting girls and boys.
Listen, once again,
girls and boys here today.
And you're always on safe ground when you do that.
Yeah.
I will discuss Lex. That was really good. Wow. Older block. Oh, no way. That's Tim. Holy shit. I'm not listening to those again. Milo. Russell Brand. No way. Well, how do I just begin? Yeah. Alright, yo, let's get this. This is perfect right here. I took Alex Jones's health advice for 30 days. Philosopher Chris Payne. K-Payne 8.0. Yeah. Right now, I'm still a little tired from just the last 4 days, but you could probably hear it in my voice.
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay. Do you understand that?
Whoa!
Alex
Oh!
Jones.
Oh!
For almost 2 decades, Alex Jones has built a media empire around far-reaching conspiracy theories and off-brand libertarianism.
Captivating.
But a YouTube platform boasting over 2 million subscribers,
Whoa.
and an online website that traffics over 6 million visitors a month. But there is one piece of Jones's business model most people are not familiar with.
What is that?
In 2006, Alex Jones began selling his own product line instead of running traditional sponsored ads, and the InfoWars Health and Wellness page has become a major piece of the InfoWars business model. The entire InfoWars brand is basically built around the idea that people are trying to control you, and the only way you can protect yourself is by buying supplements like male vitality, vitamin B12, organic seeds, and a whole host of other products that are only and exclusively available through the InfoWars website. My name is Brendan Jones, and for the next month, I'm going to be living exclusively off of Alex Jones' health advice.
No way, what? Yo. 30 days of Alex Jones' health advice. No shit. I want to say I feel like Alex Jones, like 2005, I thought he was just big, but he just sits at a desk. And it's a big desk. And he just grew on me the more that I don't know, I want to say he almost looked better the older he got. Yeah. K-Pain 8.0.
The company that sent this is literally called Free Speech Systems.
No way. Free Speech Systems package.
The package contains BioPack, a vegetable-based supplement that promises to help grow a healthy head of hair, 1 copy of the Bill of Rights, a We the People bumper sticker, and of course, Super Male Vitality, a testosterone booster composed of organic tree root and bark supplements. It tastes about as appetizing as it sounds.
Wow.
I hope this doesn't kill me. I try to implement Alex Jones' dietary advice into a healthy lifestyle of running and lightweight training every second day. And I take my supplements twice a day.
Oh, got the 50 pounds.
But my work doesn't stop there, as Jones has exposed a whole host of dangers I'll need to be aware of.
They don't just put sodium fluoride in the water. They put hundreds of chemicals.
I purchased a fluoride filter for my shower head, but can't afford the second filter.
Where's your water, buddy?
That makes this the only safe source of drinking water.
It's right here.
But the reason there's so many gay people now is because it's a chemical warfare operation. I have the government documents where they said they're going to encourage homosexuality with chemicals so that people don't have children. Here's the inside of this juice box. And if they zoom in any more, see that thin plastic?
I don't know. Shout out Alex Jones, though. Sheesh. That is Alex, though. That is Alex. He be ripping it just with his language. And he's just another passionate speaker that I've looked up to. But, yo, he talks about some wild stuff, yo. No. Is the government in possession of alien spacecraft? You guys better not be asking. You can't put a question like this in the title and not have the answer. I need this answer right now. You know this is gonna keep me up. This will keep me just looted. Wow.
So what do you make of all the
Lex
stories of UFO sightings, all that kind of stuff? Do you think they've visited Earth?
Yes. My grandfather was an air traffic controller.
Oh no, I remember this.
And he said they would often see.
Wow. Insane. Whoa. Let's check this out. Let's see what's up with Joe. Yeah, philosopher Chris Payne. Morning, Joe.
Growing up in Akron,
yeah.
And like you guys had to feel like you were on the outside of the music business, right? Like the business itself was in Nashville and LA and New York, and growing up in a town. Do you think there's an advantage?
Well, we did, but oddly, Pat and I had a connection to the real music business, both in our family.
Ah.
My cousin was Robert Quine, guitar player. Who played with Lou Reed and Richard Hell and the Voidoids, one of the first punk guitar players.
No way.
Really influential. And then Pat's uncle's Ralph Carney. Saxophone player, played on all the Tom Waits records, B-52 records, all kinds of records.
Ah.
So it was weird.
And these guys weren't like financial financially successful, but they were critically lauded kind of individuals.
They were professional musicians.
Yeah. So they
on records, and it was just odd.
So it's like,
we grew up around the block from
Philosopher Chris
so what we
Payne.
want, I mean, we looked at that. We're like, the idea of making a record was what we want. That's all we wanted to do. Was make a record.
What's a
And then,
record? A world record.
By the time we were selling at like 150, 200 seat rooms, we were like, we fucking have made it. This is it. This is fucking awesome. This
What is
we
a
wanted.
record? No way.
And then
Guinness.
we would be like, what if we tried to sell out the 400 seat room? What if, you know, it would just
Whoa.
kind of slowly went. And then finally we got to this point where we were like,
Beautiful.
well, what if we tried to play Madison Square Garden? And our manager was like, yeah, you could do it. And we're like, well, let's do it. And then we did 2 nights there. And that's literally what started from playing our tour history, like in Brooklyn or in New York. Was like, we opened for a ska band on a Monday night in Brooklyn for $50.
We drove all the way from Akron.
8 hours each way. Made $50. That's our first show in New York, and
wow.
And yeah, that to the fucking Barclays or whatever. But it was all like because it was like honestly when we got to the point when we were playing Troubadour, I was like, we fucking done it. We fucking got there. And they're like, well, there's another venue down the road,
a little bit bigger.
Yeah, it's always your agent. Like, yeah, there's another venue.
Well, that's why someone who doesn't understand anxiety is never going to understand how a person like you,
I have anxiety.
with all that success, could still get weirded out. Do you know? I mean, that's
anxiety.
That's what makes it interesting, like the managing of the mind.
You know, I mean, Dan and I are both pretty confident, but we're not like. You do know that I think you're only as good as your last show, really. You're only as good as your last record, and you know you can't just.
I don't know, man. Some people when they're playing and jamming, they sound way better
right?
than.
They had a couple of good albums, and then things kind of went off the rails.
Dude, it's like my favorite band is like growing up with Devo because they're from Akron and they're like this different
Marco DeVito.
crazy band, punk band.
Demi.
You know, and
There is something special about Akron, though.
Yeah, there is.
But it's something special about Ohio.
Yeah.
But you watch a band like Devo though. I was gonna say get to L.A. and whatever
Facts.
happened there, the change that happened, and
yeah, Young Samosa.
it's something. I mean, that's something that Dan and I've been. I think actively trying to avoid is that.
What are you trying to play?
You know, but yeah, that's like I go home to Akron. I fully accept and know that I'm gonna get made fun of for certain things. I'm gonna like a real individual get my shit thrown at me by my friends, and they're gonna make fun of me for whatever.
Yeah. You're okay, dude.
Rightfully so. But yeah, Ohio's and the Midwest. It's an inspiring place. Because it kind of is a vacuum, and the people who are operating there, like 99% of them are operating just because they have no other choice, and they love doing what they're doing music-wise.
Oh,
So. You go to New York the first time, and it's like,
Mid-North.
you know, the smallest little band has a connection to the biggest producer, and it's like that here too, you know, and that's why, like, it's like
true.
People like a group. Anytime there's like 4 teenagers playing music together here, like A&R comes out, oh God, we're gonna give you a big deal and get you on MTV. It never fucking works out. I mean, that's like think about like, the amount of fucking bands that have come from Los Angeles. How many great rock and roll bands have come from LA? I mean,
yeah,
seriously,
tons, dude.
it's a fucking massive city. It's the biggest county in the country. And the music industry is here, and take the last 20 years of great bands from Los Angeles, you wouldn't have a long list. Same with New York City.
You'd have a lot of empty beer cans.
If you go the last 40 years, the list doesn't grow that much.
But
do you think it's better? That's what I'm saying. Do you think it's better to be on the outside?
To listen
Do
to
you think
a
it's
band?
better to be in a city where you're in kind of a small town?
Here's what I think is best. I think if you can
School
really
band.
integrate with the music industry peripherally from the outside, it's always best.
How so? What do you mean?
Like, if you end up signing a major label, like, look, we got some offers early on to sign to major labels.
That's what
Early
it
on. We
is,
did not do it.
Ohio, to
Mostly
get
because
for the band
we
life.
kept being strung
I
along, like
remember
the
that. No
contract would be
shit.
there.
What, guys?
A week would pass, one show. 2 weeks would pass, we call. It'll be there next week. Finally, we were like, fuck this. We realized, at the age of 22, we realized if we signed this shit, and they can't get a contract to us to even look at, in 6 weeks, if we make a record, we're gonna be so fucking log jammed. Like
Looted, yo, get it.
So we took the gamble and we signed with a small indie and just kept fucking going, you know. And when we finally went to a major, it was on a subsidiary of a major with a really supportive president, and we were kind of on the outside still. Even though we were inside, we were on the outside. And we were able to do our thing. We've never had an A&R guy sit around and tell us to speed a song up or whatever. But the problem is, if you get in without having some of those boxes ticked, and you get in, you sign a big record deal off the bat, some fucking dumbass who has a communications degree from like fucking Pepperdine and be sitting down next to you, be like, I think the hi-hat's too loud, bro. I mean, K-Rock can't play that. The drums are. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. You know what I mean? And
K-Rock is some
right
legend.
When you get those notes coming from some dude, it's your A&R guy.
K-Rock.
I mean, there are good A&R guys, but
No
most
way,
of
a
them are these types of
website?
dudes. Yeah. And they'll be like, yeah, man, like, and it's basically what they are doing right then. No. When they're getting in your head, like, you gotta change the hi-hat on the mix, man. What they're saying is, when this record fucking fails, and I can't deliver that any sort of fandom to you, that I'm gonna say that you turn the hi-hat down too low, or turn the hi-hat, you didn't turn it down low enough.